What's up, guys? Welcome back to Lion Mark TV. Mark here with another exciting, delighting, and much interesting video. Yeah, politics here on again with about the story of Soludo and Peter Obi, the Labour Party presidential candidate. Well, today this elder statesman, who is a PDP chieftain from the southeast part of Nigeria, had a very interesting conversation. And please just sit back, relax, listen to everything. You get the root of the problem.
Even to everybody who is in public office, but unfortunately, I think what the governor said, I have an extensive, a full copy of his response, was ill-timed, unnecessary, uncalled for. Why? Because Soludo is not running for the presidency of Nigeria. Peter Obi is. And he probably took over power 8 years or so after Peter left office. Like you know, I'm a fully articulated supporter of Atiku Abubakar, but that does not make me to make somebody else's ambition irrelevant. I don't think the governor had any reason to go to the length at which he did. That is again washing our dirty linens in the public, because like I said, it's unnecessary. And I must say something. A day before, or 2 hours before he released this comment, the governor called me and was on telephone with me for almost 35 minutes. To be honest, I didn't understand what he was saying. But at the end of it, you know, he posted the comment to my WhatsApp, and I read it through, and I thought it was unfortunate because there was no need for it, absolutely no need for it. It's a distraction. Peter should be left alone to run his campaign. Win or lose, you are not in a position to declare a judgment whether he will win or lose, because you are not God. Most of us supported him, aside from our party, because we felt he was competent to do it, but not just to be talking like a market woman. He shouldn't degenerate to the level of what in the Igbo we call, you know, I mean, Fela Ransom Kuti we call political yabis. There are times when political yabis becomes exciting, but not in a serious matter. Peter should be allowed to do his campaign. Win or lose, he goes home. There are about 16 or 17 candidates winning. Only one person will emerge as president-elect of Nigeria, and the rest will not be killed. So I don't think it is necessary. If his candidate, the ABGA candidate, was making social, you know, attacks, as I may call it, it might be understood, because it's candidate to candidate. I don't see why. And fundamentally, from what he said, he was the first person who gave him a platform in Government House to declare his presidential ambition. So I don't know how and what finally deteriorated to the point of, you know, this kind of very serious, you know, it's like...
Some people have also said, well, this is politics and not a tea party. And it is a time of the season, 100 days to election, and people would really be at their best or at their worst in terms of actually looking at opposition. However, the question here is, are there any wisdom, like spokesperson for the APC has come out to say that there is a certain of wisdom and advisory in the letter that Soludo wrote and made public. And perhaps not all of it will be agreed by certain persons. Like Ohaneze Ndibo says they've dragged him to the deities and he will answer to the gods. But they should focus on the matter at bay.
Well, I don't know what purpose Ohaneze is serving. Which Ohaneze? Is it the president of Ohaneze that made that statement, or some representative somewhere? Because to the best of my knowledge, Ohaneze has not endorsed any candidate so far, which I think is the proper thing to do. But to come to discuss that question, my worry is that Soludo had no reason to be seriously concerned about. We in the PDP should be a lot more seriously concerned, especially for most of us who have worked so very closely with Peter Obi, and we felt like we were abandoned without notice. We should be annoyed, but we have not made any comment to that effect. You know, on this platform about 3 months ago, I warned that what is happening now will come up. Because if Peter had effectively, and I use the word effectively, consulted his people, you know, all the governors, not getting their consent, but sit them down and say, this is why I'm running. Which is, you see what Tinubu is doing with Western governors, going around the whole country campaigning for him, and most governors in the North and prominent citizens are also doing the same thing for Atiku. So I would have expected my friend to have started initially that charity begins at home. And my worry essentially was, it does appear that the Yorubas are the people championing this cause initially. And it is worrisome. You know why? Because in 1952, the same problem Zeke had at the Western House of Assembly, he won an election to become leader of government process. Akinloye and 2 others came and bowed before him and moved over to Awolowo's side. And he was forced to come back to the East. That particular incident is the problem of the rather very unfriendly relationship between the various states in the former Eastern region, because Eyoita was forced out of office and Zeke took over as head of government business. That problem had not been sorted out up to now. And again, during the Civil War, or before the Civil War, you know, Awolowo was arrested and put in prison, and he was at the Calabar prison. So when the military took over, I remember the fateful day at what is now 82 Division in Enugu. It used to be one battalion Nigerian army. We were all training, about 9 of us, out of which about 7 of them died. It's only myself and one other person who just celebrated its 80th birthday our life out of that first team that joined the Biafran army by July of 1967. Nzogu, Onwategu, Ifajuna, and a couple of others came to where we were training. Do you know who came with them? It was Obafemi Awolowo, who had just been released from Calabar prison. And in the evening, he addressed a press conference that if the East was allowed to go, the West will also go. And the Zeke opposed that singular act and said they should not allow him to go back to Lagos. He should remain in Enugu until we watched what the situation was. But Ojukwu overruled him. He went back to Lagos. 2 days after, he was appointed National Minister of Finance and Deputy Head of the Federal Executive Council. And starvation became a legitimate instrument for war. And the rest is now history. And when Peter started again, you can see the couple of Yorubas who came out. Afanifere, I don't know which branch of Afanifere that is supporting him, without one governor who is a member of Afanifere coming up to say, oh, we support what they are saying. So it's the same history of a particular section of this country who probably, for whatever reason, competitive reason or whatever, don't really see us as friends, but as competitors, which is nothing wrong with that. But we have had history of their supporting us or making statements in that regard, and we fell. So I will advise Soludo, please let Peter be. Let him run his campaign. But people should address issues when it becomes necessary for issues. It is not Hail Mary. We are not going to receive saying high mass. It's no. If you're going to public office, it's not just enough that you say you will do this, you will do that. You have to tell us how you will do it. Because exactly that's what happened in 2015. Buhari was painted as a military magician, and we now know today that he's not one. So people have again started saying, this person will do this. For instance, if Atiku Abubakar says he will do this in education, nobody will question that. There's a beautiful secondary school, primary school, and the best university in this country. So you know that if he's president of Nigeria, ASU problem will not be passing through at all. That is already a 25% pass mark in his 5-point agenda. No other candidate can say that. No other candidate. It's just a wishful thinking. We will do this, we will do that. You haven't told us how you will do it differently from what this government is doing. He is saying that from day one, he will put in a bill for restructuring of this country. If you don't restructure it, this country cannot move. These are specific statements from somebody who knows that we are at the precipice. So that is what I will say towards that. And finally, to advise my 2 friends, and you see that Peter gave a beautiful reply. Say he's a trader, that the other one is a professor, even though it is sarcastic, because he's a philosopher. I know he went to my university and he studied philosophy or psychology. So somebody who studied that is a very brilliant person. You can't call him a trader.
Chief Ulansi, I'm just thinking, if I have an issue with you, maybe in the past, I may just look for a perfect time to begin to attack you. Now, as an elder in Nigeria, an elder statesman, and one who understands, the Southeast terrain, in your conversation with Governor Soludo, have you tried, to find out if there's an issue, maybe political, maybe something that happened in the past that may be, bringing about these attacks at this time, so that maybe we can try and settle something that happened in the past. Did you try to find out if there's anything like that? Because, I mean, the comments that he was wondering why, rather than in keeping those money, he should have, you know, provided roads, schools, hospitals, and other infrastructure that could meet the needs of the people. At the time, former Governor Peter Obi was the governor at the time. He decided what to do. So, looking at these comments, and do you think there's something, or have you tried to find out if there's an issue?
Well, let me tell you something. He called me to ask whether I knew of the interview he had with channels and the barrage of negative comments being made against me. I said no, and which was true, because I was very busy going around the southeast trying to fix, you know, wherever we had problems for my party. That was what I was busy. It was one thing I didn't see, and I said no. It is since then that a lot of comments negatively have been made against him, and that he was going to respond. So I said, I wish I saw the negative comments. After all, when I said on this platform that Peter should consult, that if he doesn't consult well, and Igbos vote for him, and he cannot translate that vote to national victory, that will be aiding Tinubu to win. People abused me terribly, but now those people who abused me are calling me back now to see, oh, that they did not follow the line of my argument. I said, because Peter, you are PDP. You were vice presidential candidate of PDP. You advised us that your move was excellent because that was the only way the Igbo man can find national power. And by the time you left, you probably saw something else that nobody else saw, but you didn't tell us. We have a right. He was leader of PDP in Anambra State, but he didn't tell us. But we didn't kill him. I mean, about 2 months ago, if there was a big wedding in Lagos, our chairman, he came there and we heard ourselves for almost 5 minutes. And he said, oh, God, I heard what you said. When I come back from America, I will come down and let us talk. I said it was important if you do. But since then, I haven't heard from him.
That's Peter Obi?
Yes. So what I'm saying is that I'm not aware that he has any personal problem with Soludo. If he did, Soludo couldn't have organized presidents of town unions and some traditional rulers and government house for him to address them that he was going to run for president. Somebody who did that did not nurture any negative feelings. I think part of, if you read exactly what he wrote down, that probably when he asked him, he should tell his candidate to step down for him. And, you know, I think that was very offensive to Soludo because the person he's talking about was a retired chief judge of Anambra State. And a chief judge of a state is not just any other candidate. And I warned then, and I'm happy that those who tried to abuse me, and there was one person, you know, from Mbauku, he answers Mbuze of Mbauku. He said, I was born by mad parents. That's what he wrote. And I said I wouldn't dignify him with a reply. Why? Because his traditional ruler, Peter Anugu, was my orderly during the Biafran Civil War. The person who is ruling his community. And there's a top lawyer in Abuja here who was my orderly during the Biafran Civil War. Probably the person calling my parents mad was not born when I was fighting for Biafra. So why should I discuss with him? So there are such instances you have to ignore. Because in this political game, once you enter it, you must be prepared to listen to all manner of comments. Because people have different interests that may not be really societal interests. You know, so I don't know whether if there is anything else, but I do not believe if Soludo as governor was able to give that initial platform for him to declare for his interest, unless something developed.
There was a line of thought that you lost before coming into this person who you said you were born by mad parents, that there was a candidate who Peter asked someone to step down. You didn't finish that line of thought, Chief.
No, I said from what Soludo wrote in his response, he said that Peter asked him to ask Abga candidate to step down for him. It's in his letter. And he felt very offended because he said Abga was the third national largest party in the country with a government and members of the National Assembly and State Assembly, and that Peter had nothing to show for it. So there is no way he can substitute his own candidate for Peter. That was probably part of his anger. But what I said initially, I don't think that is what should
not be
really
enough.
It's not good enough to project it to the public space. Because, you know, only one thing, and I said sincerely, only one thing, as Christians, that's how there's only one way. You can't go to God without passing through Jesus Christ. That is what we believe. But in politics, there are so many ways you can use to achieve the same purpose. So Peter could become president of Nigeria if he's lucky, But I'm supporting Atiku, and I will do everything by the grace of God, humanly possible, to make sure that my candidate wins, because I believe he has a better, you know, a manifesto and a better interest in trying to implement and save this country from the precipice where we are. But that should not give rise to anybody castigating and passing judgment that he will not win, he will not do this. It's not, that was the part Soludo mentioned that I didn't like. It's not God. Nobody should say somebody will not win or you do this. It's no, you don't arrogate yourself. Being judgmental. I don't like anybody being judgmental.
Yes, but then he also spoke about, you know, having to consider that Peter will not be in the first or second or even the third runner-up. And, you know, of course, the PDP came into that calculation, and the APC and perhaps any other party. And that also puts your party in the view of the chances in 2023. One would have thought that that would have been a sort of, you know, accolade on your part on that statement.
You know, what I said this here, because what Soludo now said, what was said 3 months ago, I said, Peter, you are part of PDP. APC had no business in the Southeast. Seriously speaking, we have always won 70, 80, 90% of votes in the Southeast. So if Peter left PDP to another party, who is he moving with? He's moving with some elements of PDP. And APC have nothing to lose. They will indeed be very happy, like Soludo said, that somebody else is working for them. And this is why I'm now working extra time to convince our people that this pathway is not good enough. You know, I have been state chairman of 2 national parties, the National Republican Convention and PDP in Anambra State. It's giving me an opportunity to be in the National Executive Committee of these 2 national parties. And the advantage it confers is that you have friends across this country. Without being judgmental, I will bet with anybody. You know, when I was on this platform and told people that Soludo will win in Anambra, I gave reasons why he will win. When Peter wanted to stop Obiano from his second term, I gave reasons why Peter will fail. And it became very scandalous about the reasons why that happened. But I don't want to go back to that. But I'm happy that I make an analysis based on facts available to me. I'm not God, but with due humility, I want to listen to the truth. The governor of Anambra State, then Obiano, called me and put me down for 2.5 hours and told me what his problem with Peter was. And I was friendly with Peter. I called Peter. So what the governor is saying appears to be reasonable to me. Why don't you leave him alone? And finally, he brought up a candidate to oppose him, and he lost with his candidate. So what I'm saying, in effect, is that you don't transfer personal animosities. You know, even if you had a disagreement with somebody, don't place it as if you are public interest, because your personal interest should not be used as a public interest. And the governor has every right to make his comment, but it is diversionary. Well,
if you look at some of the statements by Soludo, he said, let me state, and I quote him, Peter Obi and I are not just friends, but we call ourselves brothers, but we have political differences. He left APGA for PDP after his tenure as governor, and during the last governorship election, he led the PDP campaigns, but APGA won. And by the way, in 2016, he visited and proposed that I defect to PDP and contest the 2017 election against the incumbent Willie Obiano, but I declined. And we also sat next to the Emeka Anyoko lecture. I made him an offer to return to APGA, but he says it is better to stay in the PDP because APC will soon unravel. He pleaded that I let him use the government facility for his unveiling under the PDP, but I later learned to my surprise that he was unveiling under the Labour Party. Now, if you look at the in-between the lines of this letter, there is a lot of, like he said, some animosity, some background conversation that led to that outburst on the social media. But then it also brings the question of political party ideology and integrity, especially on the part, some would say, on His Excellency Peter Obi, because it then looks like it was the best option to fly under a party that was willing to give his mandate that visibility, regardless of political party interest. So where comes political ideology in all of this?
There's no political ideology anywhere. This is why I said on this platform that I now look at individuals and look at the antecedents and decide whether, even if they will disappoint, they will not disappoint me to the point where I will become hypertensive. You know, so that, my father used to say something. If you give somebody 1 naira to go and buy something, and he eats 50 kobo, and he suddenly realizes that what you have asked him to buy with 1 naira, he will not be able to buy it, he eats the remaining money. That is what is called corruption in Nigeria. Because half of the money for projects are stolen and shared, and the remaining one will not be enough to do the work, and they share the remaining one because nothing will happen. So what I'm saying is that when you look at I said, he said, even in that letter, in the response of Soludo, he said, I said. Peter has not responded. All he did was say that he is a trader, that this man is a professor. That was a very sarcastic way of also.
That was a shade of all the other guys.
You know, so it's difficult without hearing from Peter to know actually what are these personal discussions. But whatever those personal discussions are, rightly or wrongly, I said it is not necessary for it to be brought to the public front burner. He should let Peter be. It is my party that really should be worried about what Peter is doing, especially in the southeast, because there's no doubt we will lose some votes because of him. We will lose some votes. But we are fighting. Now, my joy is that most of our governors are almost fully 100% back. Governor of Enugu State, 2 days ago, was at Nsukka and everywhere campaigning for 5 over 5. Abia governor, the presidential, his gubernatorial candidate, visited Atiku last week, and I was with them. So things are moving forward. In every state, people are campaigning. In Benue, the governor is campaigning 5 over 5 for PDP. So I'm not really worried so much. I'm worried to the extent that if we would have had maybe 1 million votes, we probably now have about 800,000 or something. And that one I can assure you, we will fight to the last minute in the 5 states of the southeast.
So you're saying some of the governors that are part of the G5,
yes.
Will I say leaving or gradually shifting grounds?
They have eventually come back to the party.
All right. Now, looking at the situation in the southeast with regards to the 2023 general election, what are some of the things that you think needs to be done? Because there have been comments about the fact that 2023 elections may not hold in that area. It may be tough. We've seen certain areas that there have been facilities, being burnt, although not in the southeast yet. But how are we ensuring, that the area is conducive? You are the southeast coordinator also for the PDP presidential campaign. How are we ensuring that the area and reaching out to ensure that the atmosphere, the terrain is
in everything about life, it's a risk. If Reverend Fathers are being caught and killed, where they are serving mass, canons are being killed, how about the lesser mortal like me? All I do every morning is get up, pray to God, and hand over my security to Him. I've never moved to anywhere since I started politics with one policeman. Everybody who knows me in this country, I travel with the belief that God said He's the only one who was that in vain does a watchman keep vigil if God does not watch, and He has not failed me. So I believe there will be security provided by God for this election to hold, because we need change. We need to change this present government, because another 4 or 8 years of APC, this country will collapse finally. Because I don't see the seriousness in their presidential, outfit. I don't see the seriousness. Absolutely not. So it is tragic to want to believe. This is why in one party again, Soludo feels very sad that if PDP loses the kind of vote he thinks we will lose in the southeast, that it is an advantage to APC. And he doesn't feel comfortable about it. Even if he knows his party will not win, because there's no structure that can make APGA win. But if Peter uses the vote of the southeast to no national victory, then somebody is losing somewhere. And that person losing is not Tinubu, it is PDP. So all I'm doing now as coordinator for the south is to make sure that what we will lose will be so reduced to its barest minimum, because I can't tell you that we can't lose anything. It's not true. No, anybody telling you that is not being honest to himself. But it is for our people to think and look at the consequences of the future. How do we? Because when Peter left APGA and joined PDP, and finally became the vice presidential candidate to Atiku Abubakar, we called him and asked why. He said, this is the only way the Igbo man can find a national power. That there's no way we can do it without this level of alliance. And we were very happy, because that was what Nnamdi Azikiwe did with Ahmadu Bello. Nnamdi Azikiwe did that with Shagari. That is the NCNC APC alliance, the MPN MPP alliance. And, Ekweme nearly tried that, but unfortunately he didn't succeed. So we want to get back to that kind of alliance, which Peter, propounded in 2019. But when he left again, we found it difficult to know why. But like I said, that is his decision. I can't query his decision. Maybe there is something he's seen that we're not seeing. So let us all be in the field and see who succeeds at the end of the day.
All right, there was a statement by Soludo, and I think a lot of people have been wanting to find clarity that when he said Igbos in their frenzied Nzobu politics have sadly found themselves in a political cul-de-sac.
You know, I wasn't writing for him. You know, he's a first-class student of the University of Nigeria. There's something people don't understand. Somebody will read that thing he has written. I think it's common knowledge. No. It's somebody who probably had a past degree, you know. Nobody, if you discuss with somebody like Professor ABC in Wales, you see that he's in a class of his own. You won't understand. To be a first-class student, you don't pick it on the street. And I've seen people writing to, you know, cast aspersions about the integrity, the academic integrity of Soludo. That person must be very stupid. To make a first class in economics at the University of Nigeria, another Imperial College, with distinctions, come out to be consultant to World Bank, economic advisor to the federal government, and then governor of Central Bank of Nigeria. You might be an advisor and you advise, the person you're advising does not accept it. What do? Will you kill him? You won't kill him. Like this government, he is an advisor in this government, but he wrote a memo. The memo will only be relevant if the person you have written it to reads it and implements what you have written, but that will not make you to run away from serving your country. So when people develop that argument, I think it was wrong. He's an accomplished academic. Nobody anywhere in the world is an accomplished academic.
But I think the conjecture there is the interpretation that the word Nzobu is to take it all and kill each other. That the Igbos are always at each other's neck, and hardly agree when it comes to politics of the Southeast.
What I think the summary of what he's talking about is our inability to be tolerant. You know, and he made reference to when SG Koko ran an election against his own father, Alvani Koko, and defeated him. And there were about 4 or 5 such instances in the former Eastern region where people defeated their parents, and we are in this House of Assembly with Nnamdi Azikiwe as premier or with Okpara as premier, and nothing happened to them. So what I'm asking, why should Igbos, must everybody support P2B? No, it is wrong. And once you mention that you are not obedient, somebody starts insulting you. But these same people will not open their mouth if, assuming Peter loses tomorrow, you won't see them again. They say we knew he will fail. Why did he go when he knew this would happen? That's kind of Nzobu mentality. That if now the argument, now let me tell you what the argument is now. When he fails, let him come back. Now, if Igbos do not form serious alliances, how do you want people in other tribes to support you in future? This is what we are talking about. That is the summary of what we are saying. Igbos, no tribe can make it in this country alone. Buhari tried it 3 times. With all the 11, 13 million votes in the north, he still could not make it as president of Nigeria until he linked with Tinubu. And he's now completing his 8 years. Tinubu is using the same alliance. That was what Peter saw in 2019 and said this is the only way, the former Eastern region and Northern Alliance, that can make us come into power. So what else he saw later that made him leave that platform is what I can't understand. Because like I said, in fact, unfortunately, he attended even the presidential launching of Atiku Abubakar. Not only did he attend it, he took a microphone and said that he was the greatest unifier in this country, that nobody can unify this country as much as Atiku can or did. So you don't know where there are a lot of contradictions you can't explain, but these contradictions will not make anybody run him down because he's already a presidential candidate, noted nationwide and worldwide. And a lot of people are supporting him. So I want him to play his cards out. I don't know of miracles happening, but there could be a miracle if he wins. I wish him the best of luck. But from what I'm seeing on the ground, it is difficult. It's a very difficult proposition. That is the summary of what Soludo is saying, because I know my candidate will win from what I see on the ground across this country.
Talking about alignments and probably positioning the Southeast in the scheme of things, what are you putting forward? Because you are hopeful, you are confident that your candidate, talking about PDP presidential candidate now, will win. What is the Southeast, looking out for under his reign? What are you putting forward in terms of the future? You've mentioned the future. You've mentioned, alignment.
Well, he visited Enugu State about almost 2 months now, and he made a public statement that it's only the Southeast and the Northeast that have not produced an executive position. Now, why I don't blame him was if the governor of Benue State, who was then the chairman of the zoning. Enugu governor was chairman of the zoning of party offices and the zone party chairmanship to the north. I would have expected Autumn, having zoned the chairmanship to the north, to zone the presidency to the south. And they didn't do that, and it became free for all. That was why it was difficult for you to ask Atiku Abubakar not to run, because it's not a constitutional matter. That's an internal matter of a party. You cannot say he has offended any part of the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. Just like my friend Obiora Okonkwo in Anambra State, again to the credit of Peter, at breakfast, he invited me at breakfast about 2 years before he finished his second term to tell me, look, Oga, if we leave the north of Anambra, they will never produce a governor. It will be us and you and your zone. And I was looking at him at breakfast on a Saturday, Christmas. And I said, what do you want us to do? He said, we'll have to start zoning so that every person will have a sense of belonging. And I give him credit for that. That's why when Obiora Okonkwo wanted to run, on this platform, I told him, no, don't disrupt the zoning process. We want to give everybody a sense of belonging so that you go there and you see that there's no magic. When your own person is there, let it develop his place. When Adora becomes governor, let her develop her own place so that people will know that there's no magic in this place. If you go to Idemili North and South today, no governor in this country will do 1/10 of what Christian Ngige did in those two local governments. If you're passing through there, you think it's the roads built in Europe. And this governor that just left has built an airport. And if person Oka used to be a glorified local government, you now see skies, flyovers across the city. You feel a sense of that somebody passed through here. That is what development is all about. So probably again, that may be what Soludo is making reference to.
And you know, he also referenced that Ndibo, as Nigeria's foremost internet tribe and with the greatest tech in Nigerian project, does not have a strategy to engage Nigeria. And people would ask, is that not exactly what P2B is trying to do, to start up a strategy with his candidacy for that zone and that geopolitical area?
Well, I don't think that was what he was trying to do, because for you to engage a largely illiterate society, there are processes to it. Right. Most of the people in the north and even in the east don't read social media. They will be told where to vote on Friday, and they will go. 90% of them will go and vote on Friday. So your social media, you'll just be wasting your time.
Chief.